Good morning and welcome to the Caregiver Teleconnection. My name is Glenda Rogers and I'm going to be the facilitator for today's session with Dr. Tam Cummings. And our session today is sponsored by Vitas Healthcare, and they are providers of hospice care nationwide. They are located in 13 states, including Texas, California, and Florida, so that covers a lot of us here. I will put their phone number and web address in the chat box in case you need that. And Tam's going to talk a little bit about how good hospice is and that you really need to connect early to them. Tam.
Well, we pay for it. It's part of our
Sure.
tax dollars. It's part of our system. It originated in the Older Americans Act of 1964. It's intended to be used for the final year of life. The average person in our country uses it for 5 days. And that goes back to how afraid we are of death, how we don't understand what death actually looks like. We don't recognize that the person is dying. I've actually known a few doctors who don't believe in hospice because if they turn over to hospice, they lose that last few months or week of money for your loved one, which is, hospice doctors are specialized. They have a different thing of training. And one of the big things about death is especially as you get older, death becomes more and more of a friend as more and more things hurt. And what research shows us is that people aren't afraid of dying, they're afraid of dying in pain. And what hospice does is it keeps you out of pain. And that hospice sort of brings us around today to where we are. And this is going to be a hard one for me today because my mother is dying. And I remember one day Candace read off a list of 10 things. And you know how you're not allowed to practice on your own family because you don't see it. And Candace read off those 10 signs that your person should be looking at hospice. And when she did, I forget what we were talking about that day, but my heart just clutched, Glenda, because my first thought was, oh my God, 3 of the elderly people in my family should be on hospice. And one of them was my mother. And some of you may not have a great relationship with your loved one. I don't have a great relationship with my mother. My mother doesn't actually have dementia. I just use her as my model to help you have that aha moment. And so today, what I told Glenda we'd talk about is grief, because I have known for the last 2 years that my mother is approaching death, because it's really not a downward slide. It's a loss and a stable, a loss and a stable, a loss and a stable. And so when you look on a graph at the death trajectory, it's not a straight line down. It's your loved one having changes in status as they go down. And so a lot of times we don't see that. In my family's case, I am not my mother's power of attorney. And so a family member who didn't graduate high school is her medical power of attorney. And she's hospitalized right now. And they're very firm. She cannot go home until she can go and take herself to the bathroom.
Hmm.
And what they don't understand is she is not going to get better. So then my baby sister sends out a note that she wants somebody to come help her with mother, because mother can't come home because she can't take care of her, because she just can't take care of her by herself, because she'd have to lift her and move her. And my response was, I see people taking care of a person with dementia who's bedbound, who have done it for years by themselves, and they're taking care of a person who is fighting them. And people don't realize that you've been doing that. And therefore, one person could easily take care of my mother at home, and there are 4 adults there. And they've said, well, one of those adults goes to college in August. And what they don't understand is my mother won't be here in August. She is in the cycle of time for her to die. She is matching all of the criteria for death, and they're not able to accept that. And whereas I am grieving, and I am definitely at post-death grief, and I see death coming, and other people don't. And so that may be something that you yourself are going through. The other thing is we don't see death anymore. It's kept hidden from us. Your person gets taken to the hospital, they get put in ICU, you can only see them at certain hours, and they're trying to keep them alive, and yet the body is trying to do its process to die. And because we don't realize what death looks like, we keep thinking the doctor knows what they're doing. Glenda, I saw a doctor come into a room one day. It was a pastor. He had Cheyne-Stokes breathing and apnea. Cheyne-Stokes is that heavy, ragged breathing that, and you think that was their last breath, and then you notice their blood is still pumping. The space between those breaths is called apnea. He was having 90-second apnea between a breath. And usually it's 5 to 15 seconds, and 90 seconds is a lifetime. And when apnea and Cheyne-Stokes breathing begins, it means that death is minutes or just a few hours away. He was actively dying. He's now going to die today in the next few hours. And the doctor came in, pushed the wife out of the way, listened to his heart, and said, I'm going to go order some more labs for him. And I thought the wife, who was a pastor's wife, was going to beat the living daylights out of that doctor. Told that doctor to get out of that room, don't come back, don't put another needle in her husband. He is dying. The wife could understand that he was dying, but the medical professional couldn't. And that can easily be something that you see. Now, when I was a social worker, I had to take death classes. And as a gerontologist, one of the branches of my education tree, because it's a multidisciplinary degree, is thanatology, the study of death and death culture, and also physiology, which is how the body works, and also aging theory as part of it. But when I was a social worker, I had this book called Gone From My Sight. But I didn't have this fancy blue copy. All I had was I had the inside guts of it. And it's 10 pages long, 14 pages long. And it's written in this size, big type, little bitty booklet. And Glenda, I probably owe Barbara Carnes $9 million because all I had was the inside guts of this, and everybody in the nursing home, as they began to actively die, I would give a copy of this to the families, except it was just the Xeroxed guts. So don't anybody tell Barbara Carnes. This is a book hospice will probably give you. This is very helpful because this helps you realize this is what the human body is doing. And one of the things that she does so beautifully is Barbara talks about at the very end, when they have 1 foot of their soul still in the earth and 1 foot of their soul is trying to go on to heaven. And so there's very good information in this book. Barbara also has this book for those of you who have already gone through it, or for those of you who want to have a friend or just want to learn more. This one is called My Friend I Care, The Grief Experience. And what's amazing to me is it tells you what happens afterwards. Don't throw away the belongings for several months. I think I've told y'all before that in my marriage, my mother-in-law was the meanest white woman I'd ever met in my life. And I was there the night her husband died. And she came back from the hospital, I guess it was about 5 o'clock. And by 6 o'clock, she had completely emptied the house of every piece of his clothing. She had emptied his drawers. And the only thing left were his hunting guns. They're in Louisiana, and he dove hunted, and I don't know what all he did. That was all that was left. And by the morning, she had given those away to the grandsons and the son-in-laws. And there was not a thing left in that house that reminded you that he had ever been on earth. And then the next thing she did was she went through the house to find every life insurance policy she had on this man. So I'd never seen behavior like that when someone's loved one just died. Everybody grieves differently. Real hard for me not to judge her, but we all grieve grieve differently. So don't throw away those belongings. And always check the pockets. I had a man who played poker every Thursday with his friends, but they wore suits. His children found over $10,000 in cash in his suits because he'd put on a different jacket to go play poker, and he'd never emptied his poker money. Apparently they didn't go to the dry cleaner very often either, is what I'm thinking. Don't throw away the clothing right away, because you can still smell your loved one. You don't realize it, but all of us have a scent. And that scent, you know that your mother or your father or your loved one. And so that scent, keep that for a little bit. If you want to put on a piece of clothing that they wore that was favorite, that's okay. You're not crazy. You just have a need to feel close to them. Because you're dementia caregivers, it's so important at this time that you stop and take care of yourself. Remember your self-compassion.org. Glenda, self-compassion.org, Dr. Neff's website. Go on that website, turn your phone sideways. The test is easier to take. The test takes about 5 minutes, and it tells you what you're not or not, what you're doing for yourself that's good, what you need to be doing better. I'm an overachiever, Glenda. The top score is 5. Pretty sure I'd get a 7 just because it's me. I scored a 1.32. So as people who do care, and I'm looking at you, Ann Collison, people who do care forget to care for themselves. Okay. So stop and give yourselves a hug right now, because, okay, Sheila, I can see you not hugging yourself. Give yourself a hug right now. The least touched population are people over 60. The least touched of all are our dementia people. So hug yourself, get good lotion, give yourself, touch your skin. You're not getting enough skin touch, and it's important that you do that. When you find out that your loved one has died because of dementia, you may think, oh my God, if I hadn't left the community, or if I hadn't left the room. If you hadn't left the community or hadn't left the room, the belief is that their soul can't make a break for heaven because their soul is so connected to you. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So when Betsy's mother was dying, we'd been sitting there for 7 days. We were getting a little punchy. I'll be honest with you. We were a little punchy. Not drinking punchy, just awake for too many hours punchy. And now we're telling jokes. And we got to a joke, and I said, Betsy, I cannot tell this joke with your mother in the room. Let's go to the kitchen. And we went to the kitchen, and I had Betsy hold ice. Remember, hold ice, shut her eyes and breathe. We went back in. I told the joke. She shut her eyes and breathed. Then I told the joke. We went back in, and her mother was gone. And so if that happens to you, don't feel like, oh my God, if I'd stayed, I'd have been with them when they took their last breath. They died when you were gone because they were too close to leave if you were still there. If you still yourself in the room of the person who's dying, if you can just get yourself settled, you can feel the souls of their loved ones gathering around them. And so the belief is people were present when you were born. Your mother, your father, your grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings, they all came to see you when you were born. And the belief is that those ones who have passed, their souls are sitting there patiently waiting for your loved one to join them. One of the old sayings is, as you cry, oh no, he's gone, 1,000 souls shout, hooray, here he comes. Okay. Don't be surprised to find out that they've died. Even if you just saw them, that can happen. Don't sell the house, don't move, don't make major decisions, don't get remarried. I cannot tell you how many people, the older you are when you remarry, the odds go up that you're going to marry somebody with dementia. Some of you are on a second marriage, and how helpful are the stepchildren? So don't do it. Call me and Glenda first. Okay. We'll talk you down. We'll talk you down. Okay. Look at options, plan ahead. Don't avoid talking about the person who died. And Glenda, this is a common thing. So when my mother dies, and she's going to die sometime in the next 2 weeks. When my mother dies, my family members, what is most commonly going to happen is nobody will talk about mother.
Mhm.
And so I think, well, look at Mary Ann. She didn't actually love mother. She won't talk about her. And Mary Ann is thinking, look at Tam. She didn't love mother. She won't talk about her. And the reality is, if I start talking about her, Mary Ann cries. And so I don't want to do that because Mary Ann cries and then I cry. But it's important that you cry. Okay. Some of you, most of you are probably in post-death grief. You've been having crying all along. Think of that as a volcano letting off steam. Okay. You have a lot of grief packed down inside and probably a lot of anger. Those are places very close to each other in the brain. And your anger can easily be over, why didn't we get better treatment? Why wasn't this disease explained to us? Why did my person get this disease? They were a good person. And part of that is our American beliefs of bad things happen to other people. The rest of the world goes, bad things happen. And death comes to everybody. It's okay to use their name and tell stories. It's okay to laugh, especially if they were a funny person. Those things help us grieve. You're not being a bad person. It's okay to say negative things about a person. My daddy is not a nice man. I mean, he taught me to work hard. He sent me to college, but he is not a nice man. And he's actually was a very violent man. It's okay to say, I can't talk today. I'm having a bad day. As a friend, sometimes you just need to sit, be still, and be with someone. Not tell me about your grief right now, but just be there for them. So I had a divorce mediation last week, and it was horrible. And for the week following, I was having panic attacks, and all of that stuff was happening. And in between, I would have tears because of the grief of the relationship that's lost. So as you feel grief tears begin to come up, a lot of times humans push those back down because you're afraid if you start crying, you won't stop crying, and you actually will. Sometimes it's just a little bit of steam that needs to come off, a few tears that need to come out, and then go back down. If you feel like you need to cry, put on music. I have my playlist that's music for when I have to go see a family whose loved one is dying. And it's to help my empathy and to put me in that moment. Unfortunately, on the way to visit my mother, I was listening to a musician named Benson Boone, and I listened to his Mama song, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to drive my car right off the road. It was so painfully hard to hear and to face that my loved one is dying. And that's what each one of you are doing. It's just that you've been watching it happen for years. So make sure you talk to your doctor about your grief levels. And don't be surprised if they're surprised that you're doing that, because they're not used to talking about grief. Barbara's book, next one, is called The 11th Hour. And this is what's going to be happening physiologically in the final part of your loved one's life. And she talks in it about choosing a front runner. So making a plan with your family of who's going to be there the most. Signs of approaching death are in here. Now, on my website, when you scroll down to the tools section, you want the actively dying assessment tool. That tool starts for the final 9 months of life. The person begins to have vivid dreams, and they begin to talk about people that are gone. Even people with dementia who haven't spoken will do this. And then they progress forward. And on that scale, Glenda, we have what happens in the final months, the final weeks, the final days, and in the final hours. That's the order in which the human body ceases function. And because we don't see death at home anymore, not knowing what's happening can be very scary. And you can think that your person's in pain because their eyes are half open and they're now breathing only through their mouth. And that's actually the normal presentation in death. It is not at all what it looks like on TV. On TV, when people die, I've never seen one of them turn gray or shrink. And one of the unusual things is when your loved one passes, their body is going to appear to shrink to you. And that's the belief that that is the soul, the breath of life leaving the body. And within about 3 minutes, as they begin to cool, part of your skin coloring is your race. Most of your skin coloring is your blood. And red oxygenated blood makes your skin the vibrant color that it is. And once that blood stops moving, we all become pale, cool, and gray. So that's a normal thing. It's a normal thing that the bowels and the bladder release, and that they may defecate or urinate, and that is normal. If the person was an alcoholic, Glenda, in the final 10 hours of life, as the liver fails, the abdomen will begin to distend until the person will literally look like they're 9 months pregnant and about to give birth. And what that is the abdominal cavity is filling with blood fluid, because the brain can no longer get blood to circulate everywhere. And because the liver has failed, that blood is now pooling there. And it means that when you turn your loved one after they've died, that blood product will come out through their mouth, their noses, or their ears. So the staff, if they're in a community, the staff should clean that person for you and then ask you to come back in to say goodbye to your loved one. Some of you may want to wash your loved one yourself. That's been done for centuries. That was our final way of giving the final bit of care. And so if you want to do that, you can tell the staff you want to do that. If your loved one's at home, you can do that before the funeral people get there. And when you call, or when hospice calls and tells the funeral home to come, it doesn't mean that there's somebody available right then. It's based on what's happening in the day. So your loved one may be in your house in their bed for several hours, or they may be in the community in the bed for several hours waiting for the person to get here to pick them up. One of the things that's been discovered is if you're with your loved one waiting for that to happen, a hospice doctor who does a lot of research says that he tells families to lay flower petals on your loved one's body before they zip up the gurney, and it will make you feel better. Any photographs you have taken of your loved one at the end of this disease, get rid of those photos. That does not need to be the memory you have. Okay. I was at a conference last week, and the man came up and said, first of all, he told me his wife had FTD. And I said, sir, how old is your wife? And he said, 88. Can't have FTD and be 88. So just completely, he had been looking completely in the wrong thing and didn't understand it. Well, at lunch, he came up and showed me a picture of her. She was fully flexed and bedbound. She was weeks away, days away from death. And he had no idea, but that's the picture he was holding in his phone and showing. Don't keep those pictures. They don't help. They're not going to help you grieve. They're not going to make you feel better. Get rid of those pictures, and don't let that be the final memory you have of your loved one. If you're a favorite child and now that person is striking out at you, I don't know why they throw themselves at their favorite person. And all these years that you've been mad because you weren't the favorite person, now all of a sudden it's like, hey, look what's they're getting. They finally get a payback, and we don't understand that, but they do tend to get very agitated with their favorite person. The book I want you to get from Barbara is called Pain at the End of Life. Now, hospice, they're going to give you morphine. And these are the main reactions I hear from, oh my God, there's morphine. That my loved one's going to get addicted to it. No, they're not. They're dying. Or they're not going to get addicted to it. It's not that kind of morphine stuff. I'm going to kill them if I give them morphine. No, you're not. The reason that the morphine is there is at the end of life, there's a great amount of constriction in the top of the chest. And it feels to the person who's dying like an elephant is sitting on their chest. What morphine does is it relaxes those muscles, so the person can breathe and they don't feel like a pain on their chest, a weight on their chest. Does that make sense? Okay. While we're on the chest, Glenda, I forgot to give you a new technique. So everybody's hands up like this. Cross your fingers, your thumbs, lock your thumbs. Bring your fingertips to your clavicle up here and go tap, 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 tap. Over to your clavicle, Glenda. Stretch those fingers all the way over. That is a soothing thing that helps. Remember your hand over the forehead, hand over your heart. Remember your heart is right where your breast is, okay? Hand over here, hand over the stomach. Breathe. Those things will calm you down quickly. Remember your ice trick of going and getting a piece of ice, holding it tightly and breathing. That will get you through those moments. On about the 7th breath, you're going to drop the ice because now your hand is burning. Go ahead and do 10 breaths and you should feel calm. Now, Glenda, a few times I've run into somebody whose anxiety is so high that the ice trick actually triggered more anxiety. They need medication. Okay, so remember in the tools section, you not only check your loved one by the Hamilton Anxiety Tool, but you also check yourself. And when we talk about pain at the end of life, I have physical pain right now because my mother's dying. My heart hurts. My stomach hurts. All of the what ifs, right? And that's normal to feel, and it's normal to have unusual body pains after they die, and your doctor won't be able to figure out what's wrong. It's grief pain, and it's something else that we don't talk about. I showed y'all this one last time. This is Barbara's big book, and this one is called By Your Side, and her website is Glenda. It's Barbara Carnes. Karnes RN, and she is one of the gurus of the end of life. And she writes these wonderful little booklets. You can order them one by one, I think for like $4, or you can get a set of them. They're one of the most useful things that I have found in my entire career. And I have been using this book with families for 35 years. Okay. Barbara is a good person. If you're on LinkedIn, get on her LinkedIn website. She has something there every day about death. And she even covered, her husband died a few months ago. She posted every single day to help people understand this is the next step of what's happening with him. This is the next normal step of death in a human. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Everybody.
What was that last book, Tam?
It's her big one called By Your Side, a guide for caring for dying at home.
Okay.
Okay. Now, every hospice group does the same. Pick the team that you like best. Okay. You may like the VITAS team you had at another area, but in the next area, this VITAS team, you want to talk about them a little bit more because you might not have the same connection. So find the team that you feel the best connection to. Okay. And this should not mean death is imminent, but in our country it does, because we wait until it's too late to get a person on hospice. I tried to get my family to get my mother on hospice last year, and they wouldn't do it. She wasn't dying, and she's dying. And we want you to use hospice. Somebody comes just to bathe your loved one. The nurse is available 24 hours a day, and they come by. You meet with the doctor who takes over the care. And hospice doesn't mean that if my mother gets pneumonia, we don't treat her. It means she goes back to the hospital. The minute she leaves the threshold of her home, hospice will stop. And when she comes back from recovering from pneumonia, she goes back on hospice. You re-sign the papers and it starts all over again. But we don't want you to use it the final 5 days. We want you to use it the final year. Okay. And you have to have a doctor's order to get it. So ask the doctor as soon as your loved one starts losing weight, ask the doctor for a hospice order. And trust me, it's business. They're not going to come see you and say, oh, they don't meet the criteria right now and you'll never hear from them again. They will be back every month until your person meets the criteria set by the federal government that allows your person to receive hospice care. Does that make sense, Glenda?
It does. I'm glad they're out there.
Okay, so when you understand the physiology of death, it is very powerful to be with your loved one during this process. It's scary if you haven't been around it before. That you may think that grimace means they're in pain, and that grimace is just the normal thing. And so reach out to me if I can help you. I'm happy to. If you just need to talk to someone for a little bit, if you don't understand what's going on with them right now, get Barbara's books. They're great. They're short. Leave them laying around. Maybe some of your family members will pick up on it and be there to help you. If you can have just one other family member support you while you're using these materials, then it takes two people to change a group dynamic. So if two of you are reading these books and say, we're going to give the best care possible, then the rest of the family will follow suit. Also, if you're the parent, you tell them to sit down and read those books. Remember, we're all still afraid of our parents. Okay? If at the hospital my mother had told me to start jumping, I would have just started jumping. Wouldn't have even asked how high. Just would have done it because she's my mother. Right? And not everybody has a great relationship with the person they're doing care for. Some of you are in marriages that if it wasn't for dementia, you would have divorced. Some of you are in marriages that one family told me, Glenda, a couple of weeks ago, they say, well, we don't know what happened, but he is so much nicer now. So they got, something unique happened. And the wife said, if he had been this way for the last 50 years, life would have been so much better. But he wouldn't, for whatever reason. So you can see some unusual things happen. Keep a journal. Make notes for yourself. You'll see things that other people won't see. When Betsy's mother was dying, the days before we got there, she told her caregiver heard her talking. And what her caregiver heard her say was, Gordon, Mama was never the same after you left. And the caregiver looked around and said, Ma Jean, who are you talking to? And she pointed right next to her and she said, well, my brother Gordon. Well, Gordon had died in a car accident 40 years ago. And what was so interesting was that Jean didn't say, Mama wasn't the same after you died. Jean said, Mama wasn't the same after you left. The next day, the caregiver heard her say, James C., I'm telling you, that was the worst deal you ever made. I'm so mad at you for not calling me and talking to me about that before you signed over that note and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And she said, boy, she was just chewing out. Yeah, he's been gone 30 years. And when they told her daughter, she goes, wow, Mom's still mad about that. The next day is the day that we're beginning to arrive now at the house. And before we got there, Mary heard Jean say, Mama, I'm almost there. I'm going to change clothes now. I don't like this dress I have on. And after that, Ma Jean was in bed for 5 days, and then she passed. Now that brings me to the next thing. When Betsy and I get there 5 minutes ahead of Betsy, her daughter, and Ma Jean's now in bed. And when I walked into the room, there's an unusual group of ladies in Lampasas who are all in their late 90s. They're all independent. They play this ruthless game of bridge. They all drive their giant old Lincolns and Cadillacs around Lampasas, and they're all aging normally, and they're in their late 90s. Betsy's convinced it's the sulfur water, but I don't have any research on that. And when I walked in, one of those ladies was in Ma Jean's bedroom. And I walked in and she said, Tam, do you feel them? She said, I feel them. Do you feel them? And I said, yes, ma'am, I feel them. And she was talking about, do I feel souls gathering? And she said, I feel a woman right here and a man right here. She said, I think that's Jean's parents. And she said, right here behind me, she said, I think that's James C. But she said, there's a man over there and I don't know who that is. And we think that was the soul of her brother, Gordon, who had died. And so there's this very powerful time that's going on that can be powerful and frightening and emotional. And don't feel bad if you don't feel it. It's really just a matter of being able to calm yourself and being able to say, there's greater things that I don't know. I've only met one person who believed when you died, you died. Most of the people everybody I've ever met except for George believes in an afterlife. And so knowing that is helpful. It's important that you say goodbye. So Betsy comes in about 5 minutes behind me. And I've already talked to the lady and one of Mom Jean's friends, and she's now left. And Betsy comes in. Betsy's a little woman. Her mother was a little woman. And she scoops her mother up in her arms and she holds her, Glenda, so gently. And she looks right at her and she pulls her to her chest and she says, Mama, we love you. And if you're ready to go, you have my permission to go. You go ahead and go. You've got my permission. We all love you, Mama. And she laid her gently on the pillow. And then she stood there like this. And I said, I gave it 30 seconds because I've known Betsy since we were 4. And finally I said, Betsy, what are you doing? And she said, waiting for her to die. And I said, what do you mean you're waiting for her to die? And she said, well, it's you give them permission and then they die, right? No. She went to UT and has a finance degree. I just want to point that out. I said, no, Betsy, that's not what happens. I said, we give them permission. We wish them peace on their journey. But I said, they don't wake up and look at you and go, okay, thanks, Sheila, appreciate it. Bye now. And away they're gone. It doesn't happen like that. And it had never occurred to me that somebody thought that once they said, I give you permission, please go on, that the person actually was just going to die right then. So it's not. It's about a week-long process in bed. Okay, that's how most of us are going to die. If it's not a heart attack or stroke that takes us in that moment, if it's not death that occurs in the middle of the night, it's about a week-long process in that final week. And that's in your tool to help you understand. And then Barbara has what happens at the very end of life in her book, gone from my experience of 1 to 3 months, 1 to 2 weeks. And then the days are hours. And on my actively dying tool, it will tell you in the final hours how the body is shutting down. And that can help you because I think the more you understand it, I mean, we don't see death anymore. Growing up, people saw death and now they don't. It's kept hidden from us. It is not like it is on TV. Okay. And if your person has frontal temporal dementia of some kind, their death can be odd. They can actually, in the final hours, jump off the bed. Just their whole body goes straight up and clears the bed, Glenda. And this is the brain sending erratic electrical signals that cause the body to do that. And that usually happens for a very short period of time, only several minutes, maybe less than an hour. But if nobody tells you that, you have no idea what's going on. And it scares you to death. Okay. Okay, well, I am so depressed. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Those thoughts that you shared with us brought back memories. And one I just have to tell you because it was so funny. I had gone in, my mother was in hospice in Midland, Texas, and I went in to tell her goodbye and I was holding her hands and real close to her and said to her, my dad had died 6 months before. And I said, okay, well, Mom, we love you. Dad's waiting for you. So, whenever you're ready. And she opened her eyes and looked at me. She said, "He can just wait." And that was my mother. That was my mother her whole life that I knew her. So there, bring a little levity, but that really did happen.
I believe you. I believe you. I have seen things that are just amazing that
It is
I
amazing.
have no explanation for, except that there is a higher power, and I don't know what you call the higher power, but there's
Yeah.
another thing that happens after this.
Yeah, yeah. And my dad, who died the 6 months before, I was with him in hospice too, also. And he saw the people. And the nurse had warned me, don't stand at the end of the bed. She said, that's where the souls gather. And he looked at me and he said, who are those people there? And of course, I was somewhat educated. And I says, well, who do you think they are? And he says, well, I'm not sure. And I said, well, are they friendly? And he said, oh, very, very friendly. And so it made me feel good because I knew they were waiting for him and he saw them. And so, yeah, those things really happen. It's just not in the books. So,
Yeah. Okay, and something else, about 2 weeks before death, they'll tell you that someone's been in their room bothering them, telling them it's time to go and they're not ready yet. And it's somebody they don't know. It's usually, it's just somebody was there and told them to come on, and they told them, no, they're not ready. They're very close.
hmm,
And
hmm,
everything they're doing is how humans die. And there's another thing that I distinctly remember from, I remember the class I was in when I learned it in graduate school. And as I was driving back from the hospital and begging them to let my mother go home and die in her own place, in her own bed. And one of the thoughts that hits you is, oh crap, I'm up next.
hmm,
So
hmm.
once we bury our parents, we're the next ones on the line. We bury a spouse, we're the next ones up. And you do have that thought. And
Yeah.
that's a normal thought to have. I can tell you every thought and feeling you're having is normal. The website grief.com is David Kessler's website. Grief.com. He is the co-author of The Stages of Grief with Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. It's just he was a graduate student, so his name is in little tiny letters at the bottom of that book, and her name is the lead of that book. So he owns grief.com. There's some wonderful things on there. You can go to alzheimerssociety.uk. alzheimerssociety.uk. There's no apostrophe in it. They have great stuff on end of life. They have wonderful stuff on talking to children. They don't ask you for any money. So they do a very nice job. And some of you may get blowback from somebody that you're not grieving enough. And what that person doesn't understand is they haven't walked your journey, and they don't understand you've been grieving for 5, 10, 15, or 20 years. And you may have finally grieved your loved one. And the death is a relief. And that's a normal thing for you to feel. And other people may not understand that because they didn't understand how this disease robbed you of who you knew and who you loved. And so nobody gets to judge you. Your support group friends will be the best ones. And you really can call me. My number is 254-216-3668. A lot of you send me messages when your loved one dies, and then you seem surprised that I call you back. So I will call you back. Okay. Don't let anybody tell you how to grieve. If you need to talk, talk. If you need to change the holiday, change the holiday. The year my grandmother died, that following year, she died at Christmas, and we didn't do Christmas that year. None of us would even open our last presents from her. The next year, we went to the movies. We're not a movie going family, and we certainly don't go all together because we're not that much fun. But we went to the movie, and the next year we went more back into what our normal Christmas routine would be. So you may change a holiday. You may say, I don't want to have a holiday this year. Whatever you need to do to get through this is okay. Make sure you check on your self-compassion, and really what you want to stop and do is just think to yourself, if this was happening to my good friend Glenda, how would I comfort her? What would I do for her? Okay, now I need to do that for me. And for some of us, especially for you guys, you've been caregivers for somebody else for so long, you may have forgotten how to do care for yourself. So do a facial. Call old girlfriends from school that you knew the whole 12 years. Go on a cruise. Go someplace else. Shut off your phone. Do not watch the news. Glenda, is there anything good on the news you're aware of? No. And it's the same terrible stuff it was yesterday and last week and the year before. Humans didn't evolve to be able to take on this much bad news, this much trauma going on. We now know around the world, we know who murdered, suicide, their family, who did this, what body was found. It's constant. You didn't evolve to be able to handle that, and you don't need that on your plate. So stay away from those things. That's hard to do, Glenda. I travel. Do you know the only TV show on is murder, tracking down a murder, forensic file murder. I could literally do a murder investigation. I feel confident. You got to turn off the lights and use that flashlight and go sideways. I understand blood spatter. I didn't set out to understand blood spatter. So find old movies you like. Find movies that make you laugh. I use Tim Conway's Elephant Story on YouTube. When I am so down, I really need to laugh. It's important that you laugh every day. That's part of us aging well and aging normally. We've got to laugh every single day. Laughing helps our brain clear toxins, and it helps bring up endorphin levels. And we all need that, especially those of you who are doing care. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes. Yes.
Glenda's the only one that said yes, but that's okay.
Oh, I thought Peggy said yes. Peggy said yes.
Okay, right.
Said yes. Yeah, lots of them are getting it.
Yes.
Yes.
I will tell you, it makes a lot of sense, but it is so hard to do on a daily basis. It's funny, I have noticed for me, the stuff they have on television that's real TV or even history TV.
Not real TV is what I call it. Not
Even
real.
history TV, where we constantly talk about how bad we treat each other as people. I can't do it anymore.
No.
We were watching a historic thing last night and I just burst out in tears and had to go in the other room. I cannot
find Turner classic movies.
Yes.
Find
yes.
American movie classics, and then do what I do. Count how many times Humphrey Bogart kisses a woman with a lit cigarette in this hand, and she's kissing him back with a lit cigarette in this hand, because the cigarette companies paid for the movies, right? They gave them a huge amount of money. I'm amazed at how many kisses went on in Hollywood while we were smoking non-filtered cigarettes, and they weren't taking a break in between and running to brush their teeth. So I get tickled by that.
Yeah.
I like the old movies now. Watch them with a grandkid, because they have no idea what that phone is. They have no idea what those people are doing. They don't understand anything that's going on. And that to me is funny. What will they ever do if the grid goes down?
That's the truth. That is the truth. But
so watch favorite movies. Watch animated kids movies. Some of those kids movies are funny, and there are little jokes written in there for adults to catch too.
That's right. Monsters Incorporated.
Yeah, watch cooking shows. And I think a lot of times people don't realize it. You can go to YouTube. You can learn bread baking. I use a yeast, water, flour, salt recipe book, and I do the Saturday bread, which means I never actually touch it with my hands, but once or twice for less than a minute. So there are ways to make bread. To me is very soothing. That's an anxiety reliever for me. Walking. Remember, you got to take care of yourself. Move it or lose it. You got to keep moving. I realized I wasn't keeping track right. I went and got the cheapest Fitbit they found. And I realized if I keep up with it, I'm more likely to keep doing the movement I need to do in order to keep my body moving. Okay. You can do chair yoga. And that sounds like, oh, how hard could that be? Well, it's hard, because you're having to do things and you're twisting. And what happens when we age, Glenda, they realized this only a few months ago. You have thousands of what are being referred to as micro muscles that are the pieces that hold the muscles to your back spine in order to hold you erect. And the reason most older people begin to bend is we're not using this and keeping those shoulders back. And we're not, and the easiest thing to do is to do chair yoga, strengthen that muscle to hold your self up straight and suck in your abdomen. And those things strengthen those muscles and keep us standing up straighter and longer. I don't know about you, some of you, I'm tired of hearing old lady ma'am when I walk in somewhere. Here in Texas at HEB, they carry the groceries to the car for you if you want them to. They keep, ma'am, do you need help with this? And I'm like, my God, I must look like I'm just addled and 180 years old. And I'm not. I'm not. And so use it. Don't be offended by the nitwits around us that don't understand that we're older. And use your children. They're scared of you. They still are. Now, if it's stepchildren, I can't help you. They're happy you're doing the job. Otherwise, they'd have to deal with it. So remember our good friend in Oregon whose son didn't believe her, and she showed up with his father and a week's worth of medicine and clothes and said, here he is, I'm going on a cruise, bye. And when she came back a week later, the son said, you know, Dad's really sick. We need to do something. So if you have to go to extremes, go to extremes. Okay. Other people don't see what you're seeing because they're not in it 24 hours a day. When they see their parent, y'all have got them all fixed up. You've got them clean shaven. You've got makeup, lipstick on them. You've got them looking nice, and they have no idea. And so let them live your shoes. If someone offers to help, get help. You can do respite care. They keep building these buildings, and these are massive billion-dollar companies, and it's all about money, money, money. And what they don't realize is my generation didn't save money. They're building all these buildings for people that don't have money for them. Most people are going to have to do care at home. But when you've reached your breaking point, you can put your person in respite care for a week, for 2 weeks, or for a month. Do you know why the buildings let you do that? There's a 90% chance you'll leave your person there. That's why they do respite care. It has nothing to do with they're trying to help you get through this. But if what you can do is 1 week a quarter, 1 month a quarter in that final year, and it won't bankrupt you, do it so that you survive. Because you literally can grieve yourself to death. You're already working yourselves to death. There truly is a medical condition known as broken heart syndrome. And you've got to take care of yourself as you go through this grief, because the death rate is 3 out of 10 before the person with the terminal disease dies. But the second part is another 3 in the 6 months following the death of their loved one. And it's all due to overwhelming yourself with the work you're doing. Remember, if they're in stage 5, you're doing the work of 12 people. If they're in stage 6, they actually look sick. A stranger would think they were sick. You're doing the work of 16. If they're bedbound, you're doing the work of 18 people. So that's why hospice helps us. Area agencies on aging have different respite programs that they can do. And when you have to go to a community, you pay the per diem. Your person's there because the doctor said they need rehab, and you may just want to go home and rest. You may want to go do something with some friends, but you've got to take care of you, because your loved one would be horrified to know that you're putting your own health at risk when they have a terminal disease.
Phew, that hour went by really fast.
I know, and I didn't cry nearly as much as I was prepared to. I've got my Kleenex here.
Well, I know, and we're so very.
And y'all think this is coffee. It ain't coffee.
Okay, how much time do we have for our after session?
As much as we need.
Okay, I'm going to go back. For those of you who may not have been with us before in the past, Tam and I always go over, because we want to have time to hear from you. I know that you all feel like I do, and we're so sorry that Tam is going through this right now. But I know that she appreciates us being here for her.
But
And
how many of you others, raise your hands, how many of you others are going through this? Your person is dying,
yeah, yeah,
you
a lot
know?
of people, a lot of us. And I'm sure they related to everything that you said. I did, and my caregiving and those experiences with my husband dying and my parents dying are in the past, but it brought it all back in a good way. And I was able to laugh a little bit again about my mother. That was funny. Let's go back and
As soon as we finish these calls, I call Glenda and go, okay, was that helpful? Did that make sense? Do you think that helped anybody? And she's always so kind. She goes, oh yes, it was good.
But it's the truth. I know that it helps people because it helps me. And I'm not a caregiver right now, and it still helps me. So, okay. Let's circle back and let's pick up Peggy again. Okay, Peggy, you ready? So Peggy had said earlier,
I am.
huh? Okay,
I'm here.
all right, let me talk about this survey. You're going to see that little session survey that popped up. And so if you'll take the time while we're talking to just go through and fill that out, we'll greatly appreciate it. So let me just remind you what Peggy had said early on. She's been caring for her husband with FTD at home for 14 years. He had a bad fall in May and is now in a rehab center. The limbo of not knowing if this stay is permanent or not is hard. Any suggestions for preparing for the future? And I bet some of it, Peggy, you got from Tam's presentation. Okay. Any tips for Peggy, Tam?
Peggy, what bone did he break?
He didn't break anything, but he fell during the night, and I wasn't aware he had fallen. And I think he hit his well, I know he hit his head on the wall because the sheetrock was dented. And I don't know how many hours he was laying there. And so, I called 911 and he ended up in the hospital a couple of weeks. And then we got him in this rehab place. He's not been the same since. He can't walk without a great deal of assistance. He was walking fine before.
Okay, so can you see my hand? You see my hand?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Here's your brain. Here's your brain. Here's the bone. Your brain fits snugly inside the cranium. Okay. His brain has shrunken and it bounces in the cranium, and you can see where it hit it. So that bounce is called a contra coup, C-O-U-P, a contra coup strike, because it means that the force of the blow, his brain is floating in fluid, means that when he hit, his brain actually hit the front, bounced and hit the back of his skull, the front, the back, front, the back. And then there was an additional fall when he went to the ground. And so where a head strike would do one thing to me, to a person with dementia, severe head strike means the actual loss because of how much damage occurred as it bounced back and forth. It means that your person may have taken a step down of an entire stage.
Okay. Well, he was already at least in stage 6, so
it's just speeded up. They don't need to try to make him walk. If he's lost the ability to walk, he's now bedbound and non-ambulatory.
The weird thing is his muscles are strong because when he doesn't want to get up, some days he'll get up. I mean, they have to pull on the gait belt, but when he doesn't want to get up, he pushes back and he's stout as what he can be, but he has no balance.
But that is because of the time that he was raised in. Today's 95-year-old person is stronger than today's teenager because they did more work. And everybody who works in dementia care knows if they grab you, you're in for it, because just because of dementia doesn't mean those muscles didn't still work. But what it means is,
and when he's walking,
there's now been a decline. And one of the things, because physical therapy doesn't understand this disease, they think if they just keep forcing him, he'll walk. And what they don't understand is the piece of his brain that lets him do that is gone. And the piece of the brain that helped do that is now heavily damaged. He may recover a little bit as the bruising in the brain clears, but the brain is very sick and it's damaged. So the bruising doesn't clear the way it would if I fell and hit my head. So
Right.
don't expect him to come back as who he was. And if he
Well-
is now non-ambulatory, you've now got to make some decisions about the rest of his life's care. But it also
Right.
means the disease is now speeding up.
When he does walk, you know, they give him a walker and he doesn't like the walker. And it's kind of funny because he'll just sling the walker down the hallway.
Well, it's because walkers weren't invented until 1974, and you and I we didn't grow up seeing walkers. And
Right.
if you ever had to use a walker, it makes
Yes,
you do
they're
things
terrible.
your brain and body have never done. It hurts.
Yeah.
This is what people don't realize, I think. It hurts the wrist to use a walker. It hurts the forearms. It hurts the shoulder and the upper arm. And you're having to lift and put something forward and walk into it. And they're telling a person with brain damage to learn how to do this new technique. So they throw it down the hall and get it out of their sight. They leave it because they never had it before and they have brain damage. How would they remember to use something they've never seen before?
Right.
And so it's a lack of education on PT's part. It's a lack of education on the doctor's part. You want range of motion to keep him strong, to keep him as limber as possible. But some of you are going to have the person who does live to stage 7 and flexes. And when they flex, you can't unflex them. You will break all their bones. In his case, Peggy, you're going to see a faster decline now because of what happened. Our biggest
Right.
are the FTD people. The thing they're most likely to hit is their head because of the massive tissue loss here and here. Their brain bounces. And that contra coup effect, there's only 3 places that happens: car wrecks, football, and people with dementia striking their head. So you're
Wow.
going to see a rapid decline, and it's just part of the disease. And I'm sorry.
Oh, I know. And I'm trying to decide, like, right now he's still under Medicare because he's in rehab, but I know that's going to end pretty soon. And so I'm trying to decide, do I want him here long term? Do I want to try to take him home? The
Do
only
you have
thing,
long-term care?
no. But we're in the process of trying to get, before this happened, I was trying to get him on home-based Medicaid so he could go to PACE, because PACE has
I
been
remember
wonderful.
that, Peggy. Yeah.
Yeah, PACE, he was in PACE for 3 months, but we didn't qualify for Medicaid, so we had to get off. So then we got a lawyer trying to get us qualified, and during that time is when he fell. So, I mean, we're pretty close, I think, to getting approved for Medicaid. You know, I had to spend half my money in 5 days. That was very stressful.
And doesn't the Area Agency on Aging staff help with getting you on Medicaid?
With Medicaid, they can help with that. The PACE program is kind of, as we've talked before, Peggy, it's in certain areas and not
Right.
all AAA staff are that familiar with.
Right.
So the attorney
So,
probably was the best way to go.
yeah, I think we're pretty close, but
Well, what I want everybody to get out of this today is go to your actively dying tool and be honest with yourself about where your person is.
yeah.
Peg, I'd be asking the doctor for a hospice order.
Well, I did that back last summer, and
Oh,
they said
no,
qualify.
Peggy, that was last summer. This
Right,
is
I
not
know.
the same man. There has now been a significant
Yes.
change in status.
So he can be on hospice if he's in the nursing home?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I was a hospice volunteer and I went into a lot of nursing homes and read to people and
Oh, yeah.
was there.
And the
So, yeah.
nursing home will tell you the hospice company that works best with them, the one that they like best. And they mean it. I had, when I had buildings, there were hospice companies I wouldn't allow in my building. They didn't do their jobs right. Wouldn't let
Well,
them.
I do feel like he is, you know, in the dying. I don't know how quickly, but I'm not afraid of hospice. I'm not afraid to get hospice. My big decision right now is, do I take him home? He still tries to get up, and I'm afraid he would fall. You know, he had already fallen 3 or 4 times in the last 6 weeks.
Peggy,
And
FTD people fall up to 30 times a day or more. All with head
okay.
right.
I don't think I can take care of him like that.
You can't, because the fire department eventually, if you call them enough to come get him up, and you got to call them to get him up, because what if something
Yeah.
happens to you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can't get him up. I had to call.
Then they actually report you to Adult Protective Services
Oh,
because you've got such a sick person in your house. Okay.
okay.
Your gut is telling you, I think it's time. And let's
Yeah.
go back and ask for hospice care. And for every one of you, every single day, your person wakes up with more brain damage than they went to bed with. Okay. So whatever happened last year doesn't matter. It's what happened
Right.
now. There has been a major change in status. Everybody write down that phrase: major change in status. Change in status, major change in status. This person is not the person he was a week ago. That's a major change in status. You call the thing and to ask wherever he is, go tell them you want a hospice order. Okay.
Okay. And I've got one
Something
final
way off.
question. I'm sorry to take so much of your time, but
That's
okay.
okay, Peggy. I'm gonna send you a bill. Glenda got your address.
Okay.
You won't
I'll
look.
take it. I'll take it. My daughter is, I think she'd be okay with hospice. My husband actually was a hospice chaplain. That was his last job.
There you go.
Okay. But for some reason, my daughter is adverse to the idea of signing a DNR. And
Does she not understand that does she have his medical power of attorney?
no, I do.
Then she doesn't sign the DNR.
I know that, but I want her to be on board.
No, this is what a DNR means. It means that if I die, you let me die. When they do chest compressions on people with dementia, they break their bones. They break 3 of the rib bones because it's such an invasive procedure. Then
Yes.
your husband will be put in ICU on a ventilator. And 3 days later, they will come to you and tell you, you need to pull the plug. And you're left feeling like you killed him. All a
Exactly.
DNR means is if I die, you let me die. It doesn't mean if I break my leg, you don't fix it. It doesn't mean if I get pneumonia, I don't go to the hospital and get treated. It means that if I die, you let me die. And
I tried to tell her that, and she
have the
says
hospice
she'll support me, but she's not on board. She's a daddy's girl.
Well, she doesn't understand the disease and what happens to people who are elderly with dementia when they do CPR. Okay, that's why we ask for a DNR for everybody. It does not mean they don't treat me if I'm sick. It means if my heart stops and I die, they let me die. That's all.
She was like, if he's choking, because he does have a lot of aspiration, are they not going to do the Heimlich? And I'm like, yes, they're going to do the Heimlich. They're just not going to start his heart if he stops breathing.
That's all it means. If my heart stops and I die, I get to die. I get to die. And the repercussions of CPR, and I doubt that she knows this because most people don't know this. They break the bones in the rib cage when they do CPR. They're alive on average for 3 days because they're on a ventilator. So her last image of her daddy will not be her daddy peacefully being cared for. It will be her daddy hooked up to machines, and she'll get to see him at 2:00 in the afternoon when ICU visiting is happening. And that's it. That's the choice that happens. So we put him through unnecessary pain, and we stick a tube down his throat for the final 72 hours of his life. And he's too good of a person. All of your loved ones don't deserve that. That's all a DNR means. If I die, you let me. Okay.
And
what
hospice
I
help you
do
with
as
that?
a daddy's girl is make sure daddy's as happy as possible. And she brings him his favorite candy every time. Remember, no nuts, no caramels, no things that can stick and choke. He's a choking hazard. All FTD people are a choking hazard. Another thing is choking means that the disease is now moving down to the brainstem. So he's close to the end, Peggy, and now we just want to keep him comfortable. It's like my mother. I just wish they could understand we can keep her more comfortable than they have her. You know, that's what we want. And then for each one of you, you have to think the horrible question, what if something happens to me? Peggy, if you die today and you have not signed that DNR, your daughter will let them do CPR, and then she'll feel like she killed him and unplugged his machine. And that's not what happened. Okay. And if you need her to call me and explain it, you guys just call me. Okay. I'll be more
Okay.
gentle. I'll be very gentle. Just deep breath.
Thank you,
Our
Peggy.
loved ones are dying.
That's right.
Yes.
Thank you, Peggy. Appreciate you so much sharing.
Thank you all so much.
And
Yeah.
Peggy, I know how hard your journey has been, but every single one of you has to think, what if something happened to me? Who in my family would step up?
Right.
And where would they put them? And I can promise you they're going to put them in the cheapest nursing home they can find.
Gives
Okay?
me
So
chills.
got to take care of you. And our loved ones are they're dying. They're dying of a terminal brain disease. And every time you feel yourself frustrated, think brain cancer, brain cancer, brain cancer. Because I can show you a brain cancer slide that looks just like an FTD slide.
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing's on purpose. He's not wanting to bathe. He's not wanting to get up. He may literally not understand what you just said to him, because remember, their comprehension of language is going away. Okay. So you may have said,
Yeah.
"Let's get up and get out of bed." And he thought you were trying to do something bad and nasty to him, and he refused. So it's
Right.
not, you've got to always think brain cancer, brain cancer, brain cancer. Their brain is dying. They're messed up.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're doing the best they can.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And you guys are doing incredible jobs. It is such an honor to speak to you, to see, hear all that you've done. And please.
And I'm so sorry to hear about your mom.
Thank you, Peggy. I'm sorry about your fella.
Yeah. Be sure and come back with us. Let me see. This is July, so we don't do August. We do September, and give us a report, Peggy, of how things are going. We'll look
Okay.
forward to hearing from you. Okay,
Okay.
let's jump over to Sheena. Sheena had questions, and her response on the chat box was so long, so I told her I was going to call on her. Sheena, could you unmute your phone or your speaker and tell us a little bit about what's going on? There she is.
Hi. So I just have a question. Tam, you are so amazing about talking about all of the different types of dementia and how they progress, but then you also say that mixed dementia is actually the most common, but I haven't been able to find anywhere what it looks like when vascular and Alzheimer's are combined. And so just quick background, my mother-in-law had a stroke in 2019 when she was 66. With very little lasting damage. We were actually all amazed about how well she recovered. But then about 3 years later, she started having a lot of executive function problems, planning, anything complex, anything with a lot of steps.
Where was the stroke in the brain? Do you know what area?
I'm pretty sure it was in the basal ganglia, which is weird because she didn't really have any physical problems after.
So what you want to do is look up Lewy bodies dementia, go to lbda.org,
Okay.
and you're probably going to see some behaviors that look like that dementia, because
Okay.
where it started.
Mhm.
Bodies frequently gets misdiagnosed as Alzheimer's. It's also a cousin of Alzheimer's.
Okay.
She would have hallucination behavior.
Yes.
So, okay. So I want you to go to lbda.org. I also want you to go to nih.gov, the National
Okay.
Institutes of Health.gov, and I want you to download the Lewy Body, LEWY Family Handbook. They'll mail
Okay.
you a copy, but you can download the PDF right away. Read that and see if that makes more sense to you about her.
I have looked into Lewy body quite a bit because of the hallucinations, but they seem to only pop up when she's in delirium. Other than that, they don't seem to be as much of a problem. And she did have a PET scan in January that said Alzheimer's. So would the Lewy bodies have shown up on the PET scan?
It should have, but they may have just discounted it as a stroke.
Okay. So that's the part where I'm confused, I guess, is like if it should have shown up on the PET scan. And I'm just trying to figure out,
It
okay,
wouldn't have shown, the stroke wouldn't have shown up on a PET scan.
right, but I'm thinking the Lewy bodies should have. I don't know.
Do
I
you
don't
have
know.
a copy of the PET scan summary?
I do, yeah. And it just, the only thing that their neurologist told us was that it was consistent with Alzheimer's.
Why don't you take a picture of the summary page and text it to me, and I will call you
Okay,
after I translate it. Okay.
okay.
So
Um,
you bring up a really good point, Sheena, because we have people who have falls and hit the right frontal lobe with so much force that they actually end up with behavioral variant FTD behaviors, but not that technical diagnosis, because it didn't start the way the disease is supposed to start, but the amount of damage was done makes the person behave that way. So where the stroke happened, because it's the basal ganglia, that's where Lewy body and Parkinson's are from, and it has a lot to do with movement and balance.
right.
So probably lots of falls or
Yeah,
fall.
quite a few.
Okay. And there's no way to keep safe from that. Everything she's done on purpose. When she falls, does she crumple or does she stiffen and fall? Or have you seen her fall?
I've seen her fall, and usually she falls off of things like steps. Like she's fallen off of a couple of different people's porches. Like she just doesn't
But
see
she
that there's
takes
a
a
step
good
there.
fall. Yeah.
Yeah, and she'll just
Okay.
fall off of
Right.
something, or
So,
she'll just barely hit the, a step and fall, into the
okay.
stairs, basically.
So Sheena, when you're with her and when anybody else is with her visual field here doesn't exist anymore. That's why
That's
she
kind of what
can't
I'm
see
thinking.
where she's stepping. So when we're walking with her, we're telling her there's a step and we're reminding her to turn her head down as she walks. I have a full visual field. Okay.
Right.
And you have a full visual field. So if you hold your hand straight out and look straight ahead, if you have a full visual field, you can see your feet, your fingertips, the ceiling. You can see a full visual field. But in dementia, their field begins to be drastic until it comes down to this, right?
Right.
All they see is that tunnel. It is common that they have falls because the stroke in the basal ganglia might have been close enough to the occipital lobe that it did damage there as well. It sounds to me like she has no visual field. So you want to train your family, caregivers, and you just, when you're with her, you don't grab them and pull them. You put your, how can I do this? You put your hand this way
Okay.
under hers to support her. You don't
Okay.
hold her by the hand or by the wrist, because if she falls, she could pull you down and you could break her wrist. Instead, you offer this supportive. So I've got one hand supporting hers, and she can turn her hand and hold my hand as we walk. But this arm is what's supporting her. The second reason for this, Sheena, is if she begins to fall, I've got her like this. I can now turn and let her slide down my body to the ground rather than
Right.
fall.
Okay.
Did you do that well enough to see what I was doing?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I did.
So I would say there's no visual field down here, and she is missing the step, which is causing the additional fall. And it's not going to get better, but we would watch her that way to see if we couldn't help with other falls. Now you can check the visual field. She tell her, look right at your nose,
Okay.
and then move your hand underneath her and see if she makes any response.
Okay.
Okay.
Can do.
If I see my hand, then the person will respond. If they don't see my hand, it's nothing there. Okay. All right. And then
Thank
just
you.
any one of you can send me a copy, text me a copy of the summary page of the MRI or PET scan, and I'll be glad to call you back and tell you what it says. And remember, the new word for dementia is major neurocognitive disease. So if you see that on an MRI, they're telling you there is a dementia present. They just may not have identified it yet. Okay. Now, anybody with vascular dementia in the family got to go see a board certified cardiologist, because you inherited your blue eyes, Glenda, and you may have also inherited your dad's bad heart, your mom's high cholesterol. Okay. You can be this big around and have high cholesterol. So you want to see board certified, because those are the top doctors. They're your valedictorians. They're going to be very interested, because you're coming to see them about a parent who's got a vascular dementia, and you want to make sure you don't have a vascular disease that's not identified by your GP. Okay. So do that for yourself. Vascular dementia we can prevent,
Right.
or vascular diseases we can treat. I shouldn't say
Right.
prevent something, but we can treat.
Right. Thanks, Sheena, for sharing all that. Okay, I don't see anything else in the chat box. Does anybody else have an issue, something you're dealing with that
depressed
you
now.
wanna? I'm not depressed anymore. That they would like Tam to talk about a little bit or give you some tips.
Hi,
If not,
Tam. Hi,
Hi.
Tam. Hi, Glenda.
Vanessa. Hi, Vanessa. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you to Tam for her recommendation of a place for my mother-in-law. I'm so thankful.
She a little bitty lady.
Yes,
I saw a picture of her grilling hamburgers on
that's
whatever
right.
holiday that was. Yeah.
Memorial Day with Michael. Thank you so much, Tam.
You're so welcome. It was lovely to meet y'all. What happened was I was speaking in Dallas and Vanessa saw a podcast and called me and happened to be driving to Dallas. And I was like, well, come hear me speak and let me introduce you to somebody who runs a great community, which is Michael Knight in Richardson, Texas. And I actually got to meet Vanessa and her husband, and I didn't get to meet her mother-in-law, but she's cute, just absolutely fabulous lady. They're having a great time with her.
Thank you, Tam. I cannot thank you enough. But I'm going to send you a message later because something's just come up and I know you can address it. And I didn't want to share it on here, but I just wanted to thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thanks, Vanessa.
And
Anyone
holler
else?
at me later.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right. Oh, okay. Ann, I see you over there waving. Go ahead.
Yeah. 5 weeks ago, I had a hip replacement. So my husband, who's got mixed dementia, went into a very good care home, nursing home, and he seems as content there as he has been at home. And my other hip needs doing, so I'm at the stage of wondering what to do. And I wondered if you've got any advice on helping me to let go of him.
Wow. Ann, I don't know in our hearts if we ever fully let go. But Ann, you've said some really big things. He's pleasantly happy where he is, and you need another surgery. So let's get that surgery done while he's pleasantly happy where he is. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
When you've had the surgery and you're doing the rehab, you can always FaceTime with him just so that, because they'll go put their phones on him so you can see him. Okay. And so you don't feel lost. Now go ahead. Every one of you get some cards. And I realize cards cost a ton of money now. So go to the dollar store and buy your cards or wherever you get cards cheapest. People love to get cards and letters. And it means your loved one in a community will get more social interaction with the staff because they will carry that letter around. And there's something about your DNA and love and handwriting and touch went on that card, and they carry and hold those things and they show them to the staff and the staff reads it for them again. And it's a moment of joy over and over and over again during each day. So before the surgery, get all your cards made out for him, get them lined up, and then one set in the mail, one set in the mail. You can actually mail them from different mailboxes and they'll show up at different times, but stretch that out so that he gets mail from you so that he doesn't think you've disappeared, and keep that connection with him. And any of you whose loved ones are in a community, have your whole family send them cards and packages. I was in Florida, met a fellow Texan. She said, my sons moved me here to be closer to them. And I said, where are you from? She said, West Texas, Midland, actually. And I said, well, I'm speaking in Midland next week. I said, I'm going to send you a package. When I got to the conference, we passed around 100 cards for Texas to this lady saying, people in Texas are thinking about you. And I sent her peanut butter. I know, not peanut butter, those peanut brittle, Glenda, peanut brittle.
The patties?
No, not
From
the
Houston,
patties.
Texas? No, not that.
Center that, center paste picante sauce. I got a jar and filled it with red dirt from Midland, Texas, because it's never been to West Texas. All the dirt is red. We sent her several other things that were specifically made in Texas and those cards and shipped them to Florida. And the administrator called me when it got there and said she just was beside herself. She had Texas dirt because Texans have to die with something from Texas. It's the law.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
you can put together little packages for your loved one. Mainly it's going to be candy. Remember, no caramel and no peanuts. We don't want them to choke, but fill it up with little fun stuff and send it to them. And it will make their day. It will make their day. And when you go to visit, don't go and plan to spend the day. You're messing up what the programming is. Go and plan to spend 20 to 30 minutes. Take something sweet to share with them because that sweet tooth is there. And then tell the caregiver, I'm going to leave in 30 minutes, come and get them. Okay, so that there's not that running and tearing apart.
Yeah.
One gentleman called me and said he'd tell his wife, I got to run to the bathroom, and he'd go on out of the building. Instead of leaving her in the room, waiting for him to come back, we'd rather you tell the staff member so that they come and get your loved one and take them to an activity, and you can leave the building without feeling that anxiety. Do not fall for a brand new building. A brand new building on average in the first year has 9 DONs, and they have 7 executive directors. There is no continuity. There is no team. There is no group that has worked together. That building has been built to make you feel less guilty. It has nothing to do with care. Go to that building that's been there. If you're in a small town, don't be afraid of your small town nursing homes. We see them at the grocery store. They know you. They're going to do a good job. Our small towns do a very good job. Okay. And if you see something that doesn't seem right with anybody, you report it. Okay. You report it. Families, look out for other families, loved ones in communities. Okay. Everybody looks out for everybody else. Okay. Because remember, you probably know more than the staff does.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. It's so much, Dr. Tam. You've
Good luck with that hip. And
I was
send
going to say
us a picture when you're doing the rocket thing. You know,
Yeah.
send us a picture when you get that. But get your hips done while he's happy.
right.
Happy. Get your cards in a package ready to send to him. Get your neighbor to mail it.
Between you and a book called Contented Dementia, it's made the world of difference to my relationship with him and his, being content. So I can't thank you enough. So bless you.
Thank you, ma'am. Bless y'all for what y'all are doing.
Thank you, Ann, so
Thank
much.
you
Thank
for
you.
what y'all are doing for your loved one. It is a level of love that other people don't get.
Yeah.
Do not understand how much of your soul you've given to this person you love, or in some of your cases, how much you've given to somebody who maybe didn't deserve the love and care you've given them. But earning your angel wings, we're all going to be here for you. You can always call me. Except that lady in France who calls at 3 a.m. Would someone please explain the time change zones to her? Because that throws me off completely.
Goodness.
You can call anytime.
Okay, we have a couple more minutes. Anybody have anything that's pressing on your heart, on your mind?
Peggy.
Peggy?
Yes, Peggy,
No.
you're muted.
Yeah. Peggy, I can't hear you. You muted your phone. I mean, your microphone, excuse me. Yeah, can't. Let me see.
Unmute your phone. Unmute your thing down at the bottom.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
There we
I
are.
just wanted to tell you all a funny thing because I've been so emotional. So before Daryl's falls and things, he liked to go to eat places, and we were with a family member. We have the original Kentucky Fried Chicken in Corbin, Kentucky. And we were at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and they have all this museum and stuff. And they have this big statue, Colonel Sanders holding a platter of chicken. And my husband has a script that he tells everybody. And he walked up to Colonel Sanders
And had it with him.
and he goes, "You know, my mama sends me $25 on my birthday." And he just kept going, and people were walking by going like, "What's wrong with that man?" And I was just dying laughing because he just kept on and on and on.
But look at what a wonderful, friendly man he was. And
He
Peggy
was, yeah.
tells you his vision is very impaired. Okay.
Yeah.
So lots of falls coming, right? We
Right.
now. Okay. How fabulous. You got to write that down. Okay. Not to make fun of him, but just
No,
just write that down. That's
no.
a thing.
If you don't laugh occasionally, you'll die from it
You
yourself.
need to laugh every
got that.
single day. Okay.
Right.
So
Yep.
find something. If you like to watch kittens do silly things, go to YouTube and type in kittens doing silly things. There's a prairie dog called Poppy the prairie dog that they keep in the house, and you can watch Poppy do stuff. You can watch birds. I like to watch the huskies, which sounds like they're talking because the owner will say, "You want to take a bath?" And I go, "Whoa," because huskies bark differently than other dogs. So find something on YouTube, watch comedy. Do not watch murder, do not watch drama, do not watch all that stuff. It is not good for your brain. It's not good for your soul. It's not good for your heart. Doesn't make you feel better. And Glenda needs to say something.
Find baby goats. Oh my word.
one?
That's what baby goats.
Baby
little
goat.
goaties. That's what I've been watching recently, and I laugh so hard because
Fainting goats.
they just love to jump around. So find baby goats.
The otters are funny too.
Who?
The otter-
What are funny?
Was a cattle buyer.
the otters.
Oh yeah, they are. Yeah.
He told my aunt he was going to one of the exotic sales, and that's where they sell like llamas, and you just don't know what you could find there. And he said, "Oh, I'll bring you something." So she woke up the next morning. She said, "What'd you bring me? What'd you bring me? What'd you bring me?" He said, "Come outside and look." And she went outside and she said, "You bought me 100 goats." Exactly what I wanted. 100 goats. And he goes, "No, special goats. Watch." And he yelled, "Boo."
Oh
And
no.
He'd bought her fainting goats. And so we had the most fun with the fainting goats, and then we decided they should go live other places. But yeah, whatever makes you laugh. Okay.
Yep.
Whatever makes you laugh is critical for your own care. It is critical for your own brain health. Okay. Your brain is producing toxins every day as you grieve, and laughing helps those toxins go away, and grief tears help those toxins go away. And grief tears are different than I stub my toe tears. Okay. Anne's had grief tears because she had to put him in a community, and I'm sure that made her cry. Okay. Because you come back to the home and you're like, oh my God, you question yourself. What have I done? They're never going to come through this door again. And it feels very much like death. Okay. And that happens over and over and over again. So just laugh. That's why support groups are important. It's just critical that you find a way to help your brain and your body get through this disease so that you survive. And
Yes.
a statistic.
Yeah.
Now that I know about the goat channel, I got to go find the goat channel.
You gotta find the baby goats because they're just fearless and they just jump up and down.
They play King of the Mountain. Yeah,
They do. Oh, they do. They're so funny. So
yeah,
funny.
I used to love goats, but we had thousands and thousands
No,
of them.
that's too many.
Probably not as much as you did. Yeah, and we had to work them. So yeah, probably not as much as you do, but goats are hilarious.
My daughter and son-in-law have 4 goats, and I keep trying to talk him into getting us some babies. And I said, when that happens, I'm going to move out there with you. And that's probably why we don't have any baby goats. Because I said I was going to come watch the baby goats.
Baby goats, baby horses, baby
Any
deer,
of that.
baby sheep, kittens, puppies, all of those things are soothing to humans, and they're all just beautiful. So do something nice for yourself, and go out and have lunch today. Order DoorDash tonight. Do something nice for yourself. Take a bubble bath, eat some ice cream. Live it up a little.
That's
Do
right.
something good. Okay. And everybody practice clavicle. Okay. So I'm
It's
making
kind of hard to do, Tam. Let me see, this way,
They're not all easy.
this way. Okay, now I got it. Now I got
Then
it.
tap your clavicle, and that tells your vagus nerve everything's okay.
All right. I still like the ice, but that's okay. I'll do that
The
with you.
ice is good. The ice is good.
All right, everybody. We've gone through a lot of sadness, some
Thank you.
laughs, and had such a wonderful time together. And wonderful meaning that we've touched each other, we've learned from each other, we've loved each other, we've been there for each other, and that's a wonderful thing to experience. I put on the chat box, we'll be back with you on September the 3rd. That's a Wednesday at 10 o'clock. So I'm looking forward to that already. August is going to be kind of boring. But thank you for all you do. Thank you, Tam. Love you so much, and I'm here for you.
All of you guys.
Yeah, and we'll
All
talk to
you
you.
folks.
Yeah,
just-
yeah.
You're just my heroes.
Well,
Your strength. You need to write. I know some of you've done it. I know most of you haven't. Write a letter to yourself. Anne, Peggy, Sheena, all of you. What a wonderful caregiver you have been. How much love
Thank you.
and care you have given. And then put the letter up. And I know I'm asking you to do something that is so, so hard to do, because you have focused so much on someone else, you've forgotten about you. Write down a letter about all the care you have given, and then put the letter up. And there will be a day when you need it, and it will be there. You won't remember all these things. Write down the funny things they say. That's what you want to remember, not what this disease does to their body and their mind.
true.
They're strong, but you need to realize at the same time they are strong, they are frail and fragile. Think of them like fine glass. It's strong till you strike it just right, and then it's gone. Okay? Any broken bones mean we're getting close to the end of life, and we just make sure any change in status, that's our phrase. The doctors understand change in status. They don't understand he's different. I don't know what's wrong. But when you say change in status, that medically means something. Ask for hospice.
Right.
Start asking as soon as you can. Okay? It's not, and we pay for it. Please use it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay,
And by
Tam,
pay
you're
for it, I
gonna-
mean us, the average American taxpayer. Us. We pay for it. Let's use it.
All right.
Yes.
You're going to be in our thoughts, Tam. And I know
Thanks.
I'll be talking to you in a few minutes.
I know. I gotta hang up now so I can call Glenda and see how the session went.
All right, everybody. We'll see y'all in September. Take care of yourself. Summer here in Texas is blazing hot, but enjoy whatever you have available to you. And we will see you in September.
And
Bye-bye.
remember, if it's hot outside and you can dehydrate and die in a few minutes, it also means you can dehydrate inside. Okay. If the weather's hot outside, it still affects your hydration. So everybody hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Doesn't have to be water. Probably shouldn't be wine.
No, that's not a good idea. That's not a
But
good
anything
idea.
without caffeine in it. So
That's
fruit
fine.
juices, non-caffeinated anything, drink all of that, but make sure you hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Okay.
Hi, Laura. Bye, Laura in El Paso. It's hot in El Paso too.
Or in El
bless your
Paso.
heart.
Paso on the phone.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody. We got to
Bye,
get
Scotland. Yeah. Bye.
Well, it was you, Ann. Oh, wonderful. Thanks for joining us. Talk to y'all in September. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Y'all take care of yourselves. Call if you need something.